This interview is a part of the Oklahoma Historical Society's Oral History Program Living Legends collection. This interview was originally conducted on November the 18th, 1971. The interview was conducted by Mr. Pendleton Woods. The interviewee is Mr. George Murray, that's capital Murray, of Wewoka, Oklahoma. This material is being re-recorded on September the 22nd, 1987, for inclusion in the permanent collections of the Oral History Program by Judith Michener.
This is Penn Woods interviewing for the Oklahoma Living Legends, and the date is November the 18th, 1971 in Wewoka. We're in the First Baptist Church at Wewoka, and I am visiting with a pioneer of Wewoka who has been here for over 70 years, Mr. George Murray, M-U-R-R-A-Y. I'd like to start off with, I'd like for you to tell me who your parents were and when they came to Oklahoma, or about when they came to Oklahoma, and where they came from.
Well, my parents came from Louisiana, Freeport. My father was named Willie J. Murray. Willie J. Murray. And my mother was Ari Murray. Ari, A-R-I.
And they came from Louisiana.
Louisiana.
When were they? How long ago were they? When did they come to Wewoka?
They came in here in the territory. They was about, let's see, now if I can get there, about 4 years before statehood.
4 years?
In the territory days.
About 1903.
Or 4, I think. Yeah.
And when were you born?
I was born in 1892.
1892.
93, I'm trying to say.
And you came here within
Yeah.
1904.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What was Wewoka like that early? That's a long time ago.
Well, it wasn't nothing. It was just a little old, what you might call a village, you would say. And they didn't have no paved streets here or nothing. Just little old sidewalk, and most of them was plank. And the stores and things was off on the side. And so that's the kind of town that we had here.
At that time, what type of, what percent Indian, or what part of Indian, was it heavily Indian in Wewoka?
Indian? Sure, quite a few. A lot more then it was now.
More larger percentage.
Yes, sir, it was.
What percent colored was Wewoka?
How old was it?
What percent colored? What was Wewoka? Was there a large number, or were you among the few?
It wasn't very many people settled in here.
Yes.
This is, I guess, about, well, I'll be afraid to say about how many hundreds of years, but I don't guess couldn't have been over 1,000 people in here.
Why did your family come here?
Well, we left out of Louisiana on account of my mother. She wanted to come on out here, and we came out here. We thought we heard about was filing, and we could get out here and we could get a lot. We got in here just a year too late.
You got a lot.
Get a lot. So this fellow Cootie Johnson, he was the one that was trying to get us allotted, but it had all been taken up.
Tell us something about Cootie Johnson. He played an important role in this area. Tell us something about this man.
Well, he's a great man. I'm telling you, he was smart. He was an educated lawyer, and he owned a big farm right out there, and we were staying on his place. And I don't know how many years we stayed there, but we stayed on his farm until I married one of the girls that he raised. And then after he passed away, we still right in that area yet.
What brought him to Oklahoma, to this area?
Cootie? Yes. Well, I think he was born here. He was born here, but his father, I don't know anything about his father. His father was named Robert Johnson, but I didn't know anything about him. No.
Now, where was he educated? You know that?
I sure didn't know where he was educated.
Was he a lawyer?
Who was that?
Cootie Johnson. An educated law.
Oh yeah, man, he was smart, man. He worked for the Rock Island Railroad. He was a lawyer for them, and I don't know how many years he worked for them, but he finally got into this oil business with Black Panther Oil Company, and so he was into that up until he passed.
Did he organize the Black Panther Oil Company?
I don't think he did. It seemed like it was a company of his. He might have been into the making up, but I don't know whether. See, I was small. I was young then. I didn't pay anything like that much attention.
Do you know about when it was organized?
No, I sure don't.
Was it earlier than the oil boom? Was it heavy oil boom?
Oh yeah, yes. The boom had just started off. I think that boom had started. We heard about this oil business. It started over there at Muskogee. That's when he had some fellow coming in here from Muskogee, but I can't call the man's name now. But he was coming in here with him and visiting, and that's when we found out about this. It had Black Cat, they call it, Black Panther it was, but he had that on the side of his car, that emblem. And so I don't know just exactly what year it was. It must have been sometime long and because my mother passed in 13. It must have been sometime after 1913, back up in there somewhere.
Whatever happened to what happened to the Black Panther Oil Company? Was it sold?
I don't know what happened to it. After he passed away, well, we never hear anything more about the Black Panther.
Did he have many people? You say you lived up on his place. Did many people live on his place?
Oh yeah, yeah. He had a lot of people there. He went and got him a bunch. I think he got about 8 or 9 families out of Arkansas, Ashdown, Arkansas, and moved them and then settled them out there on the farm. And so
they worked on the farm.
Sure, they worked on the farm, on his farm. Had a big bunch of people. I think it was 8 or 9 families he moved in here.
What were the streets like in Wewoka then?
Well, I tell you, there wasn't no streets on it. It was just like where you go and clean out a good road on the day. And that was the main street over there now on Wewoka Avenue, but of course we didn't have no buildings in here or nothing like how we got now. It was just all little old huts and of course there wasn't no real nice buildings like we have now.
What was the biggest building in town then?
Well, the biggest building as I can recall was the old Jackson Brown mercantile store. That's where he had about the biggest stores in this town.
Can you think of any of the other stores in town at that time?
Well, I sure don't. Of course, later on down the line up the road there was a fellow by the name of Sam Lane. He had a store here, and then W.B. Chandler, he had a store here. That was back down on the north end of town, up on the north end of town. And of course now, the mercantile store, that's where they always had to script money then. And they would have to go there, because that's where we had to carry. If you got it wouldn't work nowhere but at the store. And so it was pretty Jackson Brown store.
Where would the script money come from for the store?
Well, I don't know. It undoubtedly must have come from in there from around him somewhere, because you couldn't use it nowhere but at his store.
Where would you get it? Would you be paid any?
Well, now, my father, he was kids, you know, and I know he would go and he'd come in with the script money. And so I know they found out how he was getting old to it, when, whether he was anything, if he'd bring things to sell, probably he might have got over to it that way.
I suppose so. Yeah. I guess sort of like gift certificates.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a kind of a general merchandise.
Yeah, that's right. General merchandise. He had all hardware implements and clothes and food. Last time we go down, my father would buy 500 and 600 pounds of flour.
What did you raise on the Cootie Johnson farm?
Corn and cotton. That's all we raised. And a little oats, but we planted that mostly for early feed for the stock. But everything was cotton and corn.
You know, it seems commonplace to you, but today's younger generation, many of them have never even seen a mule. Or you know, this is true, because it's not around anymore. You know, they don't use it.
That's right.
So why don't you describe what it is like farming with a hand plow and a mule? I'm sure that's what you did.
Oh, yeah, man, I'm telling you, it's not no easy job. Because we started from, when we first got to this country, there wasn't nothing like a cultivator. They didn't have a one-row cultivator. And so we used what they call a Georgia stock and a double shovel stock. Of course, and one mule on it, where we go up one row on one side of the row and then come back on the next. And that's the way we made our crop until they brought it on up to where we found Jackson Brown. He had the cultivator to come in.
How many hours were you working a day, man?
Man, I don't know. We worked from 9 to 10 hours. We never would. When we went out there, we stayed in there until, and if the crop got bad, we stayed there from sun to sun. Yeah.
How much could you plow in a day?
Well, if you had a pretty good stepping mule, you could plow about 3 or 4 acres a day. And of course, after we got the cultivator, man, we plowed about 6 and 7. Because we carry row all the time, you know, with 2 plows. We had 4 plows on each side of the row. And that's the way we went on. And then we stepped up a little further, and we got to riding cultivating. And we thought we had
Living it up.
Oh, man, we went to town, man.
That's not worth it, just riding.
Riding, that's right.
You ought to stay in.
That's right, I'm telling you. And of course, we had pick when we planted that crop. While our dad, we'd have to get out there and help harvest it. Of course, we had a whole lot better than it is now. Farming was. We didn't have to work near as hard. And when we worked hard, we could realize something out of it. It wasn't insects eating it up like they are now. And so we really didn't make good but cheap wages. And what we raised, it was cheap. What we got for our product we raised. And we would sell cows for a cow and a calf. We'd get $25 for it.
Of course, things you bought were a little cheaper, too.
Oh, a whole lot cheaper.
It was a lot less to
that's
buy.
right. We'd go get a pair, get a suit of overalls. We would pay $1.50 for them, or $2. But now it costs 6 and 7. And I'm telling you, it's a whole lot different. This is a new world we're in. Way on the different what it was when I was coming up.
Now, you still live in that same area?
Sure, I live right
Has
there.
the old Johnson place been broken up, subdivided now?
Oh, yeah, man, I say it's been broken up. After he died, well, his wife, she taken over. And I guess he had about I don't know how many sections of land he had out there, but she began to sell it. She sold the places out. And so it just changed hands. Now, it just don't look like the same country. It's just a whole lot different. Nothing but cows out there now.
What did you do after you quit working on the farm? What was your next occupation?
Well, my next occupation, I worked on the farm up until 1952. And in 52, I went to Tankerfield. And I worked up there. And so I checked out to give me time to go gather my crop. Well, I stayed out so long trying to get my crop in because we were making big crops then. So I stayed out so long I didn't get back in time. And so I just felt ashamed to go back there and tell the man that I wanted to go back to work. And so I told him that I guess I'd clear out. And so they told me, so, well, we don't want to see you clear out, but you can go. And so I went back, and I think I checked back in there in 61 or 58-1. I went back to work there, and so I stayed in there until the 1959. That's when I got hurt up there, got my back hurt. And so that let me out. And so I've been on the farm ever since. And I've been right in that area out there.
Taking the early days of Wewoka that you were there, say from 1904 to 1950, up until World War I, what can you think of that happened that was particularly exciting in Wewoka during that period? Can you think of anything that happened in town?
Yeah, I can remember one thing happened here. Now, of course, this was a killing. That happened up there on the main street. Two Indians got to fighting, and they had a shooting spree, and one got killed.
Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that. I know the boy that did the killing.
Were there many fights in those early days here?
Man, yeah. I said, well, lots of killing. Out in our area there, we had a boy, of course, they was pretty bad fellows. It was Frank Bruner, and another boy, but he was, can't call that boy's name, but Irvin West. They had a shootout that back north and west of me, and both of them got killed. They got killed together.
I heard that now Pretty Boy Floyd lived in this area.
But I didn't know anything. I heard a lot about Pretty Boy Floyd, but I never did want to meet him. They said that he was around in here, but I never did.
You never
See,
saw him?
I never saw him.
Mr. Heyman, we interviewed this morning, used to be a barber, and he said he used to cut Pretty Boy Floyd's hair back before he was a criminal.
He did?
Yeah.
Well, I guess he did. Now, the boy that, up here at Bowling, when they had that bank robbing up there. Well, this boy, Charlie Glace, now, he used to be around our house a whole lot. He'd come out there and visit with us, and we were just surprised. He was there the day before that he got killed. And we know them thing, him and this, one of the bunch out of Pretty Boy Floyd's bunch, they went up there and held his bank up. And he Bedwell and Charlie Glace and another fellow, I don't know, I forgot his name, but Charlie Glace and Bedwell they got killed up there.
They were part of Floyd's gang, is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Did you know any of the other criminals who did you ever run across any of the others who were involved in this area?
With Football Floyd?
Yeah, Football Floyd.
No, I never did. No.
He was the one, I guess the only one who kind of hung out here, wasn't he?
Well, I guess it was. I just heard lots of the boys. One fella, he came to me one night and asked me did I want to go with him to see him. I told him no. I told him no, I didn't care about seeing him. Man, that's bad. I don't get on up with him.
If he doesn't shoot you, it means matter what you with.
That's what I was thinking about. And from the way that they talked about it would have been an awful fight.
Yeah.
Somebody was going to get killed, sure. And so I always kept myself out of the clear, in the clear there with it.
I understood that within the tribal area, as well as particularly in here, that they had very strong regulations, let's say, on stealing and that sort of thing, and that their punishment was pretty stiff. Their own.
Yeah, that's right.
I heard they used matches and that sort of thing.
Yeah, you had a whipping tree. That's what. Of course, I never did see him the whipping. I was too small, but I heard my father-in-law. He was telling us about it over here at the courthouse. They had a whipping tree there, and then they had a tree where they put them up against some trees and shoot them. And that's for them bad guys, you know. And so he told me lots of time about how many men they would, just like they was having district courts and county courts, you know, and they have so many of them. They had men to kind of men strip them down the waist, and then they tie them to that tree and whip them. And he said he's seen them whip the men so hard until when they get up, when they just fall. Just putting your field, and then and I asked him about this the shooting of a man, and he said that it was to be 3 men have rifles, and they place a mark or something over a white spot over his heart, and then they blindfold him, set him up against that tree, and 2 of them rifles wasn't loaded. One was loaded, and all the fire at the same time. Well, you wouldn't know whether they give you your gun, but you didn't know whether it was loaded or had a blank in it. But the guns would fire, and so you wouldn't know whether you killed a man. I wouldn't know whether I killed him or not.
You'd have blanks in the other.
They had blanks, have 2 blanks and one load.
The blanks kick, and you wouldn't know whether it was.
That's right. And so they had that they didn't know who killed him.
Have you seen the whipping tree? You said you didn't see the whipping. Have you seen the whipping tree?
They tell me that whipping tree is up there. I don't know. I've seen the pecan tree, but I know that I've seen the blackjack tree. That's where they killed him at. And here was a tree about like that. And the last time I seen it, they cut it down, had the stump inside the courthouse. And here was, I guess, about like that. And there's a blackjack tree, and I was asking James about it the other day, and he told me, said they had it up here in Oklahoma City. And I often would ask him about it. See, I've looked at it a many times in the courthouse, but I never did see him shoot nobody or either whip nobody. But I've heard them talking about they whipped them and how bad they beat them up. But it didn't seem like it helped none about the stealing. And I know one accident happened was back north of Old Button. There was a horse thief come in here, and he was trying to get away with a team of mules and a horse, and they killed him. And So I don't know. Back in them days, man, people was going with 6-shooters, Winchesters, and had the Winchester stick down in the scabbard, and big 6-shooter sitting up here. And man, they was tough. Yes, sir, they was plenty tough.
But that cut-down feeling was...
Yeah, man, I'm telling you. And so we had, I've seen lots of horse thieves, and lots of horses were stolen. But we never did have any of our stock stolen, because we stayed out there on the Mancuda's farm, and whenever them rustlers would come in about, why, someone would always tell my father about, my dad, I've seen him stay up all night watching his horses, keeping the horse thief from getting them.
How did after World War I? Can you think of any? Thinking a little bit later in the 1920s, can you think of any events during this period that were particularly memorable, or occasions that anything that came to town of special interest, circuses or?
Well, long about that time we began to have, I think, World War I. Things began to kind of move out. We had carnivals come into Wewoka, and then another thing we began to go to improving the streets, and then we began to go to getting some nice houses built, and we began to tear these old shacks down. And of course, when we come into this country, in the territory days, we stayed in an old log house, and it didn't have no flooring in it. It just had a deck floor. And so we stayed in that until we moved out and got into another house, and it had an old log house, but it had some flooring in it. And then in World War I, that was when things began to look pretty good. We began to get pretty fair houses and had places to stay kind of comfortable. Because back in, before that, just like it'd be clouded up here, and it'd go snowing in the night. You get up in the morning, snow, you done blowed in there and got on your bed, on your cover, and you just throw it off. And people was a whole lot healthier then than they are now.
We get used to comfort zone.
That's right. I'm telling you. And in the summertime, well, the houses, the old logs, it had mud daubing in there, and they'd go around and take a stick and knock them chinks out of the cracks, so we'd get some air in there. And then in the wintertime, long in October, they'd get together a bunch of men and get some grass and mud and called cats, mud cats. And man, they'd come up throwing them cats, stopping up them cracks, that's for the winter. And so, but after we got away from that, we began to kind of pull on up the hill. We had everything looking good, and then we got the streets paved here, and we got good roads out from town. We had pavements out there, and I'm telling you, as one thing that I thought never would happen, that we could go to town, could get over here to Wewoka in about 20 minutes from where I live. Because, man, it looked like to me sometimes the road gets so bad, you'd have to put in there, take 4 to put on a wagon and get over here. And it was awful rough time back in World War I. We began to go to pulling up. That was when I think I married, and me and my wife married in 1917. 19. That's when World War I started. Because I was was called out. And of course all the fellows that was farming, if he looked like he was trying to raise something, he'd leave him there for to raise something for the soldiers. And they deferred me, and of course right up to the last, when arms was signed, just about 3 days before armistice was signed, they had called me to go into service. And I was trying to get my business all wound up to where I could be ready to go. And I was standing over here at W.L. Thurston Hardware up here in town when I was standing there, and I heard guns shooting and people hollering and yelling, and I seen two men run out there and had something they poured on the hats and they set them afire. And I began to think, I said, look here, I guess the trouble done got here now. And so I come just look around. I asked one of the clerks in the store, I said, what's the matter with these people? He said, oh, so didn't you know, armistice signed, peace is declared. I said, sure enough? He said, yes, ain't you glad? I said, well, yeah, I'm sure glad, all right. Bill Thurston Hardware up here in town when I was standing there, and I heard guns shooting and people hollering and yelling, and I seen two men run out there and had something they poured on the hats and they set them afire. And I began to think, I said, look here, I guess the trouble done got here now. And so I come just look around. I asked one of the clerks in the store, I said, what's the matter with these people? He said, oh, so didn't you know, armistice signed, peace is declared. I said, sure enough? He said, yes, ain't you glad? I said, well, yeah, I'm sure glad, all right. But I had been worried so about taking my friends and boys that I run around with. I just wanted to go.
Let's see. Back on the roads, the streets, I understood that there were periods, when you had a lot of mud, that horses and mules and wagons would get mired in the mud.
They would.
Could you describe what that was like?
Oh, man, it's just like you, I guess I can't subscribe, but it was just like you going on one trail all the time, just keep it going, and it'd be raining, and some places it just bog clear down to where your wagon would be dragging on the center, like how I said, you run into a mud hole where your car would set out and you could see where it marked across the road on the center. Well, that's the way some of the wagons would be. And down here on this Wewoka bottom, that's where it would take putting your 4 mules to go through there whenever it got real boggy. And of course, at times, that creek would get up to where we couldn't get to town. We just had to stay out there until water go down. And so now, you can come to town anytime you get ready.
What was it like during the oil?
Oh, man, there wasn't no roads then. It was just a boggy trail. That was when Cromwell was booming up here, and the South Field was booming. And they had some teams on there. There wasn't no trucks pulling them loads, and they just had nothing but wagons and mules and pulling them. Some of the loads they was pulling with 4 and 6 on it. And man, that guy on the hill was just tore to pieces. Some holes you run into, it'd be that deep, about 3 and 4 feet deep, where them wagons would just fall off in there. And sometimes they'd have eight spans of horses on there, pulling it out.
Do you remember when they had this discovery well here, the first one?
Discovered the well. The first well that I heard anything about, it was discovered down here in this field, South Field. And yeah, that was the first boom days that it was discovered out here around Parker's Chapel in that. And then it just began to spread out.
A lot of excitement.
A lot of excitement, man, it was too. And there was some rough people following that bunch too, that oil boom too. And then the next boom we had, that was up here at Cromwell, and then when we got to another little place called, I can't call the name of that place, but it didn't boom very much. But Cromwell and the South Field was the heaviest boom places we had in there, and early.
What was the town like? It's quadruple the size of the town.
Yeah, man, it helped this town. I'm telling you, it really brought this town up. Man, that's when we began to get some roads in here. After the boom began to kind of go, the boom went kind of going out, where the wells was pumping, then they began to settle down and make good roads in here. And we doing pretty good then, and the town built up. Because they brought a lot of companies in here, and they had them big warehouses, and they had machine shops and everything in here. And man, we had a big thing here then. Things was going. One of the men told me, he said, "There's one thing about it. If you want to see some hard time, whenever all this oil go out of this place, so you're going to see things kind of get a little tight around here." And he knows what he's talking about, all right, because it did kind of tighten up on us. Because the fellow that was getting the wells, he was doing good, but we wasn't making nothing. Because we get around and get little jobs here and yonder, but see, we wasn't, the farmers wasn't considered to work on that oil field. And sometimes we take our wagon and go down the road and pick up a few dollars, pulling some man out of the bog hole.
Of course, that would also bring a great deal of this would also bring pretty lot of bars and that sort of thing into town. What happened in the area of excitement within the town, say at night? Was there many fights or much rough element then with all of these people brought in at the same time?
Yeah. Now what is it?
Yeah. Well, with this, of course, you have any boom town. You've got it brings to it a lot of nightclub things and bars and that sort of thing. And of course, it also there's fights and that.
Oh yeah, man, it was fights. But now up here, where we had the most of the rough gang at Cromwell. Now, man, it was some tough men up there. And you could go by there, go up through that oil field at most any time, and especially on a Sunday, and say they'd be out there betting on the horses, pulling against one another, and fighting and killing too. It was pretty rough.
What about in later years, the past 10 or 15 years? Is there anything you can think of that ought to be, that we ought to discuss that we haven't? It's been a very fine interview.
Well, I just can't think of anything that's happened.
What do you have with children, grandchildren?
Do I have
children?
Sure.
How many?
I just got one girl.
One girl and have grandchildren?
I got two grandkids. They're there.
Do they live here?
No, they live in Los Angeles. Los Angeles. Yeah.
Well, this is certainly appreciated. This has been an interview with Mr. George Murray in Wewoka, Oklahoma. The date is November the 18th, 1971.